We're talking about The Flash.
There we go.
The Flash, a couple of years ago, maybe longer, it's been sat on the back burner because of its star Ezra Miller and his off-screen antics in various different countries and various different people alleged. And if you've seen the movie, if you watch the movie, you'll know that there was just no possibility that they could have recast once they shot that. There's no way they could have done it. They couldn't have CG'd or deep faked him out. He was.
Sorry, they. I suppose we've got to get it right. They
couldn't have deep faked them out. Yes, and they caused a huge amount of discomfort for the release of this film.
Yes,
because it was a political and a PR nightmare. And I will give them credit. The film, when it came to release, all everybody was talking about was Michael Keaton as Batman. It became the return of Michael Keaton as Batman. And when you watch it, there's nothing wrong with Ezra Miller's performance in it.
Yeah.
It's a solid performance, partially snarky, partially cleverly, knowingly snarky. It's not a bad performance for a center of the movie, and repositioning the movie as Keaton up front really makes it hard for me to say that people shouldn't go and see this, because if you grew up with 89 Batman and liked Michael Keaton's Batman, which really you should, it's great seeing him back. He's, as you might expect, absolutely scene stealing. And what's great about him, and what was probably great about the 89 Batman, sure, he is clunky in combat and a bit stiff, but he was the best Bruce Wayne. Like, by far.
Yes,
his Bruce Wayne was someone you could fully see was a little bit unhinged. He was a little bit disturbed. He's a little bit, let's get crazy.
Hey.
I don't think I've ever been in this room before. I mean, he was eccentric and charming at the same time. He didn't have to be a drunk, typical playboy. He actually managed to carry off an aloofness there. And he had a skittish kind of nature to him that was born out of 30 other things going on in his head, one of which being the death of his parents haunting him. But he had a fantastic look in his eyes and a fantastic way about him. And Keaton brought the best Bruce Wayne by far. And he brings it back now.
Excellent.
He's making spaghetti, and he's Michael Keaton.
Is that a spoiler?
Yeah, Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne making spaghetti, and you absolutely know from the way he's acting around making spaghetti that it is Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne making spaghetti. It's crazy how good he is in the part.
What would John and Greg give it, though? As a MasterChef gag there, because he's making spaghetti. Do you know what? Forget it. I'm wasted.
Go back to watching Family Stallone, man.
Honestly. Hey, I didn't know what. It's right. I'm up this week. I'm all up to speed. It's all good. Frank's all right. His nosebleed dried up. We're all okay.
Haven't seen a single episode of Black Mirror.
Nope.
But I'm up to date on the Family Stallone.
Yep, and MasterChef. Anyway,
right.
Sorry.
So, yeah, look, here's the reason why you'd see this movie. Other than that, the good marketing aspect has conned people into going to see a real hot mess of a movie.
Ooh.
It's really everything you could imagine DC in its current iteration doing with a properly good comic story. Flashpoint is very awesome. It's seminal. It is. It's up there with the sort of the end games of the Marvel universe. The thing about Flashpoint as a story is it can reset the entire future of the universe. It has such great potential, and if handled right, it makes Flash like the start and integral, but it also gives you some really dark alternate versions of all of the characters you know and love. This is just nothing like Flashpoint. It's just a real it's really more of a Flash movie where they just happen to have select scenes taken from Flashpoint and injected into us, and some, time travel-y stuff that is more really born from rewatching the Back to the Future movies, which, I'll give it credit, is a nice nod, because it's nice going, oh yeah, I can kind of see how that's Back to Future. But to do that to a sort of a seminal comic book run, it's not what fans would really want. And also to have people out there saying it's one of the greatest. I saw a preview showing. I saw a preview showing where they gave you doggy bags, little recyclable doggy bags to put your mobile phone in, because they were so worried that people would be like tweeting or doing stuff in the middle of this all important preview showing. And the guy came on board with a microphone before, silenced everybody, and he said, "I've seen this movie, and I don't want to, I don't want to spoil it for you, but I got to say, it's one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. It's up there, top, I think he said top 2 DC superhero movies." And I just thought, does he mean that he's only ever seen Wonder Woman 2?
This and Helen Slater in Supergirl. That's it. That's all he's ever seen.
This and Emancipation of Harlequin. I don't know. He's like, it's like really bad. I mean, something's wrong when that's the introduction. That's not a good introduction. That's not a way to get your audience hyped.
That's for all the critics who had already written their review, so they could just have a snooze. That was the tagline, so they could just put the feet up. Is that what you did, Kaz? Well, you can be honest. No one's listening.
I watched the movie. Watched the movie, expecting it to be good, and it has sparks of good Flash action. It has a decent-ish performance from Ezra Miller, and I waited an eternity for Michael Keaton to come in and save the day, and he did. Supergirl was good, but underutilized. It wasn't her fault. The narrative was just all over the place. The final sort of act was really, really bad CG, like bad. And I know the director's come on board. Yeah.
What a lot of rubbish that is.
How do people say it's supposed to be? Oh yeah, we did bring back some old Star Wars characters in The Mandalorian, and we used bad deep fake because we didn't really want people to think it was the real actor. We wanted to distinguish between reality and, I mean, what possible excuse could you have for some of the CG in this? It's a dream. What, in my dreams everybody's like made of plasticine, or it made out of 90s pixels and really smudged? I mean, it's really bad CG. It's such bad CG that you could watch the TV series of The Flash and you could pick out some bits in that where the CG was kind of a little bit similar, a little bit rubbery and a little bit TV.
The John Wesley Shipp Flash from the 90s. Nice.
Yes. Yeah. No CG in that. No, I mean, it's disappointing that they spent so much money, and it's not like they didn't have a minute to work on it.
No.
Oh, Miller's done something else in the press. I think we've got another 6 months with the CG, guys. Let's get on it. It's like...
Do you know what I think's disappointing? So obviously I haven't seen this, but I've seen enough of the spoiler-free comments to know. And I think what disappoints me is, obviously, Flashpoint Paradox was brilliant because what it did is it created a completely new set of these famous characters that we know and love.
Yeah,
it was something you'd never seen before. Yeah. And of course, what it sounds like, Muschietti and whoever, whether Gunn had something in this or whoever, I don't know. It sounds like what they've done is they've said, "Hey, that No Way Home thing, that seems to work all right for the noisy neighbors, didn't it?" So let's take the paradox bit, and instead of giving them a new version of these characters, let's bring in all these old versions instead, because it worked for Spidey and Chums, and it feels like it is yet another example of DC looking over the fence. Remember Justice League and their Infinity Stones, mother boxes, sorry, all this kind of, and I think that for me, the trailer got me because it was a very good trailer, because it hit all those points. It gave just enough of the old and a little bit of the new with Supergirl.
Didn't watch the trailer.
Well, it'd be interesting for you to go watch the trailer and tell us
Yeah.
if you think that the finished film bears any semblance to that. But from what I can hear, that for me is the biggest disappointment about the Flashpoint paradox.
I think that's spot on. I mean, I didn't think about it, but I think that's I think they did a No Way Home. I think that's exactly what they must have figured would work. I mean, it's nothing like the characters that were in Flashpoint Paradox, who were at war and venomous and lost eyes and arms and limbs, and were just a shocking representation of themselves. I mean, the Batman in Flashpoint Paradox is he's really unlike anything. I mean, I'm trying not to spoil it for people who go out and hunt down the real Flashpoint Paradox, but I mean, he's a real nice shock to the system there.
As is the Joker.
It's very, very nicely done. I mean, I think they thought it was too daring, but I mean, I do know that two things. I know the original ending involved Henry Cavill. I mean, it's not a spoiler because everyone knows he's not in it, because James Gunn's like adamant he's no longer involved as anything Superman-y, even though he was in Black Adam, but whatever. So the original ending, had Henry Cavill's Superman in it, and they do an alternative. I can't tell whether it was Gunn behind it, Machete, whoever, or a bunch of people. It's a really, really bad misjudging idea. There's some appearances in it. Some are good, but there's one or two that are like, what? And the second thing, which I think is worrying, is I get that James Gunn is now in charge of this big DC monolith, and he can't tell it how it is, because he needs it to make money so he can make the movies he wants to make. So I kind of get that. But I would say he could have been a little bit more reasonable in his sort of assessment of it. He could have said, Michael Keaton is fantastic in The Flash, and not said it's one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. He didn't need to go that extra mile. I mean, it's such a bad comment about this movie that I feel like it's painting my impression of what he's going to do with DC. And he hasn't even got started. He's got Blue Beetle, which it wasn't his, and he's got Aquaman, which wasn't his. And then maybe we'll see a James Gunn movie. But he can't keep saying these are great movies. He's gotta.
I mean, it's the more you hear about this stuff, you just don't know how much things like, the Ezra Miller stuff. We don't know how much the Warner Brothers Discovery shenanigans behind the scenes has played into all of this. But it seems that almost every poor decision that DC could have made in probably the making and the run up to release they made. I mean, I think the Ezra Miller thing, because obviously he was kept out of all press, which I think was probably fine, and there was no comment from DC. But he just rocks up at the red carpet at the premiere, and as if nothing's happened, and no one said anything, and there was no comment or anything. And suddenly, the message boards, the forums, went nuts with the, "Hey, fair enough. We thought you were just going to get rid of him and keep him out, but now you've wheeled him out as if nothing's happened."
They're talking about a Flash 2 with him.
Well, again, I mean, do you know what? I'm all for second chances and things like that, but I think the way they've handled it, and if early word on the box office is right, this has gone nowhere near what expectations were. And you've got to think, why is it? Because it was a kick-ass trailer. And again, it'll be a combination of things like the Miller factor. There'll be a combination of everyone under the age of 40 going, who's that old fart as Batman? I'm not interested in that. So everyone under 40 doesn't go see it. So, again, like Transformers, you've suddenly got an identity crisis for what should be this mass. Anyway, who knows? I
tell you what, they're going to look back and they're going to go, God damn, the Snyder era of DC was actually pretty good. That's the weirdest thing. At least had some consistency to it, is what they're gonna say. At least had a vision to it, even if it was too dark, even if it wasn't for everybody.
Started well, everything else after was a bit poo.
Just what a mess right now, though.
Yes.
This is anyway. Don't see the Flash, even if you don't want to see Transformers. Don't see Spider-Verse. The Flash is, as much as I love Keaton, I'm gonna say just save it. You'll enjoy it at home. It is a hot mess of a movie, and we're stone's throw away from the next indie film, the next Mission Impossible film, Oppenheimer. There's loads of stuff coming out. You've got to take the kids to Spider-Verse. They still want to see something else, take them to it again. Really.